Hello, everybody. You're listening to The Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 303, the Sean Levey interview. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Sam and Eddie. Now, Phoenix had quite a historic win, and the Suns are now into the NBA championship for the first time since '93, but I think the real party was in England. So I'm going to let you guys just let it all out, let the tears run down, go for it.
For a moment, I honestly thought you were going to start with the Phoenix Suns as opposed to the England-Germany game. I was like, wow. Pretty special moment, right? I mean, it was nervous. It was a really, really tense performance. But yeah, wow. That was something pretty special to kind of live through and be a part of. It was so euphoric and it was great. Don't know what you thought, Eddie, over in Paris.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was England's best performance of the tournament so far. I think they rode their luck a little bit, right? Like the Muller miss was a big, big moment. Everything could have changed just if he puts that away. And I also think instantly I felt as soon as he missed that, it was like, oh, it's going to be their day. Like suddenly that was so different to the kind of England-Germany matches in the past. But still maybe a little bit too cautious at times. Second half, kind of, particularly after Grealish came on, they actually started to get the ball. Grealish turns with the ball and runs at the opposition. So that just changes the way that midfield works. So that's my only little bit of concern as they play against more defensive teams. Is you're in a situation where there is a separation between those three attacking players and the rest of the team. And they need someone to connect that. But it's a great performance. I don't want to pick holes in what was just a very, very enjoyable evening. There's only one question I have to ask, though, which is, I'm not going to say right now England are definitely going to win. I'll be very disappointed if they don't go on to make the final. But did that night and that experience, in a way, does it almost make you, and I know we're going to have listeners now who are going to hear this American-sounding guy ask this question and think I'm really annoying, but isn't it better if England never win a major tournament? Because aren't nights like that more special because they don't win?
I mean, I kind of feel like I need to know. You can't predict it, right? Because I feel like I would need to know what it's like to win in order to understand
it. It's this weird trade-off, right? So are you trading, 3 amazing weeks or 4 amazing weeks if it's the World Cup and one exceptionally euphoric night when they win for a lifetime of, I've seen it.
Hope.
Whereas this is the every time this is going to football's coming home will not be as meaningful as soon as they win a major tournament. Then it will actually be, then it switches from the slightly ironic, overly optimistic kind of and funny side of it to we're France and we're just arrogant and annoying.
Yeah, I think you're allowed to win every so often and still feel glorious in those nights. But I also feel the international landscape is so competitive that it will be hard to be a team that goes out and wins World Cup after World Cup after Euro.
I mean, I see it here, for example. I don't think French fans, they loved it when they won the World Cup. But, if you're my age and you're French, you've seen them win 2 World Cups and a Euros and make it to the final of the Euros and lose in a final of a World Cup. So all of, that's in the span of 25 years. And in that case, honestly, I don't think they could understand the French people watching the emotional reaction to winning a last 16 match because their processing of it is, but you're good. Like, you were favored in that match. You were one of the pre-tournament favorites to win. You were playing at home. Germany really aren't that great. And you won 2-0 decently impressively, but it wasn't some spectacular performance that you have to just be in awe of. And you're all treating it as if you've won the World Cup. And again, I want to see England win. I'm not going to say I'm sitting here hoping they lose so I can keep this going, but there is that part of me that thinks. Now, I will say winning the Euros, you'll still be able to then apply that to the World Cup. So it's kind of this is the stepbrother of the major tournaments.
I mean, for me, look, I understand what you're saying. I think the thing with England that not other international countries get is I think that we define a lot of our footballing rivalries by like the hurt that the other team has given us. So like Germany, I'm not talking about like global conflicts, just football. Germany have caused us since 1966 a ton of heartbreak in terms of exits, penalty defeats, everything. And you even look at other ones like Argentina are exactly the same thing. Again, conflict aside.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are burying the lead
but
a
it
bit
still
here.
is like it is like the Maradona hand of God. It's numerous exits. It's the famous Beckham moment, and even recently with like Croatia, there's a rivalry developing because of the way they dumped us out of Euro qualifying, the World Cup semi-final. I think England defines its rivalries by hurt, and that feeds into your point. Is like the elation and that moment where you just overcome 80 years or whatever it is of not beating Germany. It's such a euphoric moment where you've never seen it in your lifetime. There's people that haven't seen it in, that's 70 years now and they haven't seen it. So for me, I understand what you're saying. I just think I need to see us win something. And I think this is our chance. Like this is, I'm not saying you'll agree.
I'm just doing the calculations in my head. Am I trading this summer for enjoying international tournaments less in the future? The anticipation, I'll put it this way. If England win the Euros this year and then say, just let's go full hog, they win the World Cup next time around, then there's no way on earth I'd be that excited about England playing a quarterfinal against Ukraine. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like that, this match is only exciting. On paper, it's not great. This match is only exciting because it is, well, we might win the Euros. And this is the path. And otherwise, like the French did a little bit playing the Swiss, which might have been part of the downfall. But for them, it was very much, okay, let's look one step further because who cares about this one? It's going to come down to when we play Belgium. That's what they were all talking about.
I agree with you. I mean, being a Yankees fan when I was growing up in that golden era, I had that same feeling where you just expect them to win the World Series every year. But I have to believe that England supporters have a very short-term memory. If I can take anything from the way they rip into a player from match to match, I can only imagine they have enough of a short-term memory that if England win the World Cup and then lose the next Euro, it will already be back almost to this, we're terrible, we're the worst, we can never win anything within one cycle.
I think if they win this Euros and then they don't win anything again for a while, the thing that will just be dismissed as the easy run is the reason why they won. I think
we'll always find a way to pick a hole in it.
Externally and internally. I think it'll be easy. There'll be like a little bit of an asterisk by this championship. And then also, even as an England fan, you'd think, yeah, okay, so we beat Germany and then maybe we're going to beat a good team in the final. But if we don't play France, well, we obviously won't. If we don't play Belgium in the final, which given their injury problems looks less and less likely, then it's in a scenario where you kind of feel like, well, we didn't play the two best teams in Europe and we won the European Championships. So
I think it's an English way of doing it, right? Because I in no way, shape or form remember France's run-in, Germany's run-in, Spain's run-ins. Like I don't remember them anymore. I just remember
there are people out there who do.
The victories, the penalty misses. I remember like Italy's penalty win or something like that. I just remember the moment they won.
I remember England losing to Iceland and then France absolutely demolishing them in the following round. I remember that pretty well.
I remember that. Yeah, I think that's more for pain on my part.
But I think I have to offer a public apology though, because one of the best performers in that match was Luke Shaw. Now I think in part that was down to the fact that the shift
called him out.
Possibly.
He called you out, yeah.
But hold on. I think part of it was the shift from the 4-4-2 to the 3-5-2, which just freed him to be a little bit more involved going forward. And there was more responsibility on the wingbacks to do more going forward. So I do think that was a large
get
part
that
of it.
ass moving.
But Luke Shaw might not have listened to this podcast, but Yaya Toure almost certainly does. Because subsequently he came out with a quote, not about Luke Shaw, But this is his quote. It has almost become a joke how big Eden Hazard's bum is, but it is very important to how he plays football. When the ball arrives, Hazard feels the opponent and uses his butt as the last moment to block him. It pushes him back like a punch.
It's weird. It's a weird observation.
So, look, me, Yaya, we're just watching football, staring at asses, and assessing player performances.
Yeah.
What a weekend. But yeah, you're right about the Grealish moment as well, going back to it. Like in that 20 minutes, because he runs at players, I think he incentivizes everyone else to do the same thing, because you never saw more attacking intent in that game from people like Shaw and Sterling. Even Kane had the ball more in that last 20 minutes because
Kane,
Grealish
I want people to like take a step back from the Kane criticism. Like people are killing him for not being. I mean, in that match, I was in the bar I was in when Kane went down, sort of semi-hurt for a moment. There were people cheering, England fans cheering, saying, "Take him off." And I turned around to him like, "Who are you going to bring on, Calvert-Lewin?" And he was like, "Yeah, because Kane's out of form." And it's like, well, and you trust Calvert-Lewin more in a match against Germany? Like, what have you seen from Calvert-Lewin that makes you think suddenly this is going to be the answer? And they then hugged me euphorically when Kane scored and told me I was correct. So there was that moment. But
Nice. So you got some digits?
yeah. But I do think it's as if people are only judging Kane based on either is he scoring or the chances. And the reality is, with the way England are set up, he is dropping so deep to get involved in the play. And then actually almost every goal England then score, he is playing a crucial part in creating that goal. Even if he isn't the Sterling first goal, he drops deep, he links up the play that then gets the ball to Shaw, that then Shaw crosses it in, and he's also making another run which gets more attention from the defenders than Sterling's run in front of him. Similar to against Croatia, where he made the space by making the run. So I think it's a very simple analysis of Kane's game at the moment, but yeah, I do have to offer a public apology to Luke Shaw and his fat ass.
I mean, going back to what Sam said, though, I mean, Grealish has to start from now on, right?
does
every
he?
time
think
because every time he comes on, they seem to get an instant spark.
That doesn't equate to it over 90 minutes. Like that's an impact sub kind of thing. You look, we just beat Germany 2-0 without him on the pitch for 20 minutes, but it doesn't mean it would have been 5-0 because he started. Like it doesn't correlate. I think, I question.
Well, it kind of has to
Southgate's
correlate
tactics.
a little. I mean, he was on for both goals.
Look, I think it's tough. It's also tough. I haven't conceded a goal. It's basically a winning formula. To start tinkering with it now, don't get too smart is an element here. There has to be an except now. Again, my fear is they're now going to play definitely in the quarterfinals and potentially the semifinals. They will be favorites. The onus will be on them to attack. They will be up against sides who will sit back and try and absorb pressure. And we saw against Scotland that can lead to a situation where England create nothing. Whereas like Germany got hit on the counterattack for both of those goals and for basically everything England did well. It was reliant on at times Germany pushing forward a bit. So that is my one fear. But Southgate said it after the match, which I give him credit for. He said, if I'd picked this formation and we'd lost, I would have been killed for it. So at least he knows what he's
dead. Yeah.
He knows the risks that he's taking. And I don't want to come across as if I totally changed my tune, but still having not conceded a goal, even though there was more luck in that against Germany than maybe in previous matches. But tough to suddenly start. The only temptation I would have is Declan Rice was really suffering with cramp in that match. So I could see Henderson coming in for Declan Rice as a way of resting him. And if you are going to rest players, not that you can really do it in the final 3 matches of a tournament, but if you are, then this is the match where you got to rest them. Because you can't rest them in a semifinal and you can't rest them in a final. So if you do think Henderson comes in and maybe, you might have concerns even for someone like Saka that is a really young player playing 3 big matches back to back to back with, only a few days off. Maybe it's worth giving Sancho or, Foden comes back in. You could kind of see where you tinker there, but drastically changing it and suddenly having Grealish in, that might be risky. But on that note, I guess we can say, what's our prediction for the England-Ukraine match?
Oh, you want to start there? Okay. It's worth noting that, England's group were technically in the group of death in hindsight in this quarterfinal.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Based on tournament results, yeah.
Two of them and a good performance, based on tournament results. Crazy to think that group of death has no one left.
The group of death is officially dead.
I mean, Italy might say, Switzerland were in their group, right? And Switzerland have knocked out France, so they might also try and compete with us.
They might say they're in the harder one. I think England will win. I think they'll win in 90 minutes. I think it will be a similar grind that England have had, though. I think the first half will be pretty slow. They'll just try and figure them out. They've been game managing it really well at the moment. I think they try and understand whether the right wing makes sense, whether the left wing, whether it makes sense to play through the middle more. And I think they did that against Germany, which is why it came good with Grealish. They found a way through. I think they'll do something similar with the Ukrainians, and I think it'll be a similar score, maybe like 2-0 within 90 minutes. I don't think it will be as difficult or as tense, because I think I'll get that feeling England will break through eventually. But yeah.
I was going to say real quick, they should note we're traveling to Rome for that one, so they're not going to be in front of a predominant home crowd for the first time.
Yeah, which could make a difference, and also just having to travel will be a bit, a different rhythm for them. But I don't think with professional footballers who travel week in, week out and play in Europe on Wednesday and then play an away match in the UK on a Saturday, I don't think you can use that as an excuse. I don't think this England team would anyway, but if they lose and then people say, well, it was the fact that this is, they're athletes who are very much used to the concept of playing a match on a weekend, on a midweek, and then traveling for a big one big one, so to speak. I think I'll keep it quick. I think England are going to win this comfortably. I thought they beat Germany by a couple of goals. I think they'll beat Ukraine, I'll say by 3 or 4. So this is the last time I think I'm going to be super confident, because I'll be less confident against the Danes, if that is who they play, and I'll definitely be less confident in a final against the Italians or whoever else it makes it there. But in this one, I'm very confident.
Yeah, I'm with both of you. I think Ukraine has let up goals every match, and I think that'll continue. My question for both of you is, do they continue with the clean sheet, England, in this one?
Yeah.
I think in a way this is where they're the most likely to concede, because I could see Ukrainian. They do have some talented players going forward, and I could see a situation where it's 2 or 3-0 England, and they kind of start really going forward and they get that goal. I mean, England have been very solid defensively, but they have ridden a bit of luck, right? Particularly against Germany, where early on Germany looked really threatening, and then you had the big Muller chance, and Timo Werner had a pretty good chance as well. So I don't think they're going to finish. I don't think they're going to win the Euros and not concede a goal, but who knows?
That'd be special.
Last time they didn't concede a goal in the group stages, 1966. So
bingo.
Let's see.
So I guess. So we're all going England, I guess, staying on that side of the draw. What do you think of the other game then, the Denmark-Czech Republic one?
The other game, Sam.
What are those losers doing over there? I think for me, this is actually the toughest one to call. Now I think Denmark are doing well without Christian Eriksen. I think they found a little bit of the rhythm. There does seem to be a momentum behind them, and I've not been overly impressed with the Czech Republic, but I do feel like this is two teams that kind of cancel each other out a little bit, but I think Denmark will get through. I wouldn't be confident enough to say they win in 90 minutes. This might be the extra time one for me, but I think Denmark get through.
Yeah, I think the last couple of games Denmark have scored 4 as well. I guess it's Russia and Wales, but I wouldn't pre-tournament have put the Czechs that much higher than both of those teams either. I think Denmark. I'm more confident in Denmark scoring goals than I am the Czech Republic. Like, the Czech Republic are pretty structured, and they've had some good performances, or at least solid performances throughout the tournament. So, but I just think the Danes are, like for like, just a better team. So I'd see this one be maybe like 2-1, 3-1 to Denmark. So yeah, I think I've got England Denmark as the semi as well.
Frank?
Yeah, I'm with both of you. This is tough. Denmark has looked impressive. Yeah, like Sam said, scoring 8 in the last 2 matches. But I feel like the Czech Republic have looked pretty impressive too. I mean, Netherlands was supposedly going to be the team that kind of meets England in the semis, right? And they took care of them pretty handedly, I thought.
I don't know about that. I think that was a pretty even game. The Netherlands had quite a few decent chances to take the lead. And then that match flipped in the space of 45 seconds, where the Netherlands should have been 1-0 up, miss an incredibly good chance to score, and then right up the other end, they're down to 10 men.
Right the other way.
Then if that happens again for the Czech Republic, then yeah, they're going to beat Denmark. But
yeah, I think it'll be close, but I think Denmark will advance.
All right, and then on paper, this is, along with England, the other heavy favorite, Spain, coming into this one. Obviously, goals are flowing. They've scored 10 in the last 2 matches. Now, albeit they had an additional 30 minutes in the last one to get 2 of them. Don't always look the most solid defensively, but I think their class will see them through. I think they've kind of found their rhythm a bit, and I do feel like Switzerland were very good against France, but we also saw Italy handle Switzerland pretty easily. Defensively, Switzerland are definitely not, that reliable either. So I think Spain will be able to score goals, and I don't think Switzerland will be able to keep up with them. So this might be the highest scoring match of the, not a bold prediction, I suppose, based on what we've seen, but I think Spain will go through.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an old cliche, but it's kind of like you score 1, we'll score 2, you score 2, we'll score 3 kind of thing. I just think the Spanish will be able to easily outscore the Swiss. So even if the Swiss get goals, the Spanish will get more. I just think they've got more creativity and flair to do it. I don't think this will be a defensive game. I think they'll both, Switzerland will realise that they'll be able to get at the defense and score goals, and I think Spain will just think, well, we can score more. We've got more kind of capable players up front, especially if Morata's firing a bit, similar to what he did against the Croatians. So yeah, I think this will be high scoring. I think maybe you could see like 4 or 5 in it. So I'm going to go for Spain.
Yeah, this is one of those ones. If you were Swiss and you're coming in being like, "Oh, we've scored 6 in the last 2, we got to feel pretty good," and then Spain's like, "Really? Well, we scored 10 in the past 2, so suck it." But yeah, I think I kind of agree with both of you on this one as well. My only worry is watching the Spain match. Yes, they did end up winning that 5-3 in extra, but there was a point at the very beginning of that extra time where Croatia missed a golden opportunity to score, and that could have completely changed that match. I mean, we could be talking about Croatia right now. So the fact that they kind of survived that match, and they are a worry. I don't think they should be as favored as they are.
I feel the opposite.
I would stay away from this.
I feel the opposite and the fact that you're saying stay away makes me feel even more confident about Spain. But I feel the opposite. I feel like Spain will come out of that feeling more confident. They'll feel like they kind of took a couple of punches that they maybe didn't think I feel that was a test of character for them. I think any team that, if you look at compare it with France, I think you have a team that blows a lead late on, goes to extra time, and then finds a way to win. That's actually a testament to the resolve within the squad. So even if Croatia had taken that chance, I actually think Spain still would have won because they were creating chances. And so I think what they'll walk out of that now feeling, even though they haven't had to play from behind, is thinking, if we really need to score, we're capable of it. And we also know we can go through a little bit of a test.
But Eddie, isn't the old cliche, always fear a team that's got nothing to lose? And the Swiss, I think, are that team.
No, I don't think so. Not when you hear them speaking.
No, you don't think so?
No. When you hear the Swiss team they believe in themselves. They don't think they went into that France game, the camp, when you listen to them talk, they went into that France game thinking that France were favorites, but they had a legitimate chance. I don't think any team, once you're in the quarterfinals, I don't think they've got nothing to lose ideas anymore.
That was my point, is that once you're into a knockout stage of a major tournament, you do have something to lose just for the fact that you're there. But I think Spain gifted Croatia ways into that game, if I'm honest, and they'll just realise that. I don't think it will happen again.
And then the final match.
And then last but not least.
Yeah, the most compelling on paper, certainly, Italy-Belgium. I would have picked Belgium. I am pre-tournament, I had Belgium making the final. I think, unfortunately for them, just the injury problems they have, it's unclear whether or not Hazard will play and De Bruyne will play, but they're not practicing and training at the moment. So I think you can't rely on, I can't imagine either of them starting that match, whether or not they're in a position to maybe come off the bench. But I just think this is an Italian team that is extremely well oiled. They don't concede goals. They are threatening going forward and kind of getting more and more confident. Yeah, well oiled, literally and figuratively. And I think, I have. I'm starting to, when I looked at how Portugal really pegged Belgium back in that second half, I just think that and even when I think back to when they struggled without De Bruyne at the beginning of the tournament, just how everything that whenever Belgium have played well, only when he's been on the pitch. And so to me, I'm pretty confident the Italians will be too good for them. And if Belgium prove me wrong, then that's great, because it's actually great for the tournament, because they are maybe the best team on paper, potentially. But I think Italy will go through.
I think it's a bit of a shame, really, that you don't have, like, Hazard seemed to be coming into his own a little bit as the tournament went on, and De Bruyne is obviously an incredible player, but it's a shame that they're not going to be fully fit, and I just think that plays to the Italians, even though if you, that Austrian game kind of spooked probably Italian backers a little bit into thinking like, oh, okay, they're not as kind of all-encompassing as we saw in the group stage, but
still looked
for
pretty
me,
comfortable.
Exactly. For me, it's a shame that it's just a shame, I think, that Hazard and De Bruyne aren't playing. But I think for that exact reason, the Italians will win. I probably maybe had it slightly the other way, like you say, Eddie. So yeah, I'm going to go for the Italians.
So Eddie, it's kind of a stupid question, but does that technically still mean they haven't conceded a goal?
What do you mean?
The Italians?
Do you mean within 90 minutes?
Like how would that get scored? Like, would you say is a clean sheet only 90 minutes?
No, you have to count the full.
No.
Yeah. I won't count penalties, but I'll count extra time goals. Because otherwise you can't credit Spain with scoring 10 in the last two, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I was just wondering, like, when people say something like that, like I didn't know if a clean sheet is just 90 or if it's the full time. Yeah. I'm with both of you guys. Same feeling. If Belgium were fit and at 100%, I would go Belgium, but too many injuries and for too many good players. So I think Italy are going to scrape by here.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our predictions for the next round of the Euros. Hopefully everyone will have listened to this in time. It might be a quick listen for some, as it will only be out on the day of those first sets of matches. And I guess now we can turn things over to our interview with Sean Levey. Exciting to have our first jockey ever on the podcast, and it should be an interesting conversation about his career and horse racing. Well, welcome back to the Big Chill podcast, everyone. We are joined by the guest of this episode, Sean Levey. Sean, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
No, not at all. Absolute pleasure, and nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, no, and we know we've caught you on your way back from Newbury, where you've, as you just told us, you managed to have a winner in the last. Were you pleased with the day of rides?
I think, look, all in all, I was, I did think going into the meeting that I'd have a couple of winners. The couple of winners I thought I would have didn't amount to winners. I hit the crossbar one of them, and lucky enough, I had a ride for William Knight, who I've never rode for before, in the last race today, 20-1, and he did say that the price on this occasion didn't reflect how well the horse was going at home, and he thought it would be bang there, and it happened to be the winner. And the lucky last, as they say.
That might actually, I want to get into your career and your background because it's really fascinating, but maybe that's an interesting point just to start. How does that work then when you're picking up extra rides? How much instruction are you then getting from, if you've never been on it before, how much instruction are you getting from the trainer as to how the horse needs to be ridden and what the expectations are? And do you ever just get a situation where they kind of just give you free rein to do do as you see fit in the race?
I think the best way of putting it is this way. I've always rode for Richard Hannon. Well, the majority of my career in England, I've rode for Richard Hannon, and he's, of the belief that it is the jockey's job to know what he's doing come once the gates open in a race, right? So he does not tie you down to instructions. But as I do ride from every day, you do have an insight to how horses go and how you'd ride certain horses and, things like that. When it comes to outside rides, you do get some trainers who are very particular and want you to ride the horses exactly as they'd like them to be ridden. Because they've obviously analyzed the race, they know their horse, and they've kind of visualized what they want to happen for this horse to win. They become very difficult people to ride for because, like you can analyze a race as much as you want, but once those gates open, it could go any amount of different ways. But a lot of trainers I get on with personally, would obviously, if I haven't ridden horses, they would they give me insight into the horse itself, and then obviously allow me then to make decisions as they happen in front of me.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, it's just always one of those things that I always, because obviously when you see, if you're on retainer and you're just riding for the same trainer and you get the chance to ride them, before and in multiple races, it makes sense. But that was always one of those areas that did interest me. And I guess now kind of question that we had to jump on straight away, but obviously a bit of your background. You were born in Swaziland, now Eswatini. You then moved to Ireland as a teenager. You're unique, and I don't want to certainly give the impression that in any way you as a jockey, you're defined by this fact, but as being one of the exceptions as a non-white jockey in the United Kingdom, which is much rarer there than it is maybe elsewhere. In terms of when you went to Ireland and you came through, obviously at Coolmore, did you ever feel like that was an obstacle in any way to your career?
An obstacle, no. An inconvenience, maybe yes. Not to the levels you probably think of, but like I never felt it was something that was ever going to stop me. But there were aggravating moments. There were times when I didn't particularly like the way certain situations and things happen in that regard. But all in all, it was never something I had to reflect on daily.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then when you see, for example, obviously there's still not been many sort of non-white male jockeys coming through, but you have seen the recent success with Holly Doyle and with Rachel Blackmore. So there's kind of at least some I don't want to call women minorities, but in relative to the sport, they certainly are. Do you feel as if there's a changing of the tide a little bit in that sense, that it is a sport that's opening up to people from different backgrounds and of different ethnicities and races and genders?
In a lot of ways, I think that's 100% true. The way I look at it is this way. The majority of the time, there was always male jockeys in racing, right? The doors weren't closed to women jockeys, but there wasn't many of them. And as a result, the few that did come through, Hayley Turner, the ones that I have memory of, Hayley Turner did kick open a lot of doors herself, which then obviously led to Holly Doyle, who's kicked open a hell of a lot more doors. And then you see, as a result, then it's become easier for more and more to jump in and give it a go, right? And in my situation, yeah, being from Africa and whatever have you, that's fine. I become the minority in the sport. The doors are not closed to the likes of me, say. It's just, I happen to be the minority at the moment. But, the more success I have, obviously then you get more people wanting to do it or feeling as though, there is light at the end of that tunnel if they were to pursue it. The more that happens, the more the gates open, so to speak. You got to remember, like, racing in itself as a sport has always been diverse. the majority of good riders in England happen to be Irish jockeys for a long, long time. You know, and then you see the top people at the moment riding. Oisin Murphy's from Ireland. You know, it's you got William Buick. I'm not sure exactly. Is William Buick from Sweden or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's half Danish
Neverland?
or something. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Just
But
says
like,
an
what
odd
I'm
accent.
trying to portray is like it was never a sport that wasn't diverse, so to speak. It was just it did tend to suit whoever was in it at the time, because racing does have that kind of we're all in a bubble kind of scenario, you know. And like I said, once Haley opened doors, more like Holly's come after her, and I'm sure after Holly, a hell of a lot more will come after her, because that's the way it works.
Yeah, and I'd kind of like to get into, you know, your move and transition into when you went to Ireland and your parents were working at Ballydoyle. What was that like? I mean, you were a teenager then, right? So that must have been a crazy transition just as a person. And then, you know, how did you start kind of getting involved and getting rides and things like that?
To be honest with you, like I would want to like point this out. Riding in itself, my dad was an apprentice in Epsom. He pursued it as the only one in his family who had an interest in racing, and then pursued riding, and he ended up signing on to run Smythe in Epsom years ago. He then went on to ride in Germany, Switzerland, a few other countries I won't be able to say on the top of my head. And, you know, as luck would have it, he ended up in Swaziland, where he met my mom and where I was born. So like racing in itself, you know, was more my dad's thing than anyone else's in my family. You know, on both sides of the thing. My mom rode a little bit, but that was because my dad happened to make her. But when I grew up, my dad ran a bookies in Swaziland called it the Tattersall's. And I remember my memories when I was very young in Swaziland was my dad having horses of his own. He used to race them in South Africa, and he used to have a track sponsored by the couple of hotels in Ezulwini. Just, you know, you'd refer to him as, you know, pony tracks, I suppose, in this country, but like that's what he'd done, and he had a bookies, but his first passion was boxing, and you know, over time he went more into boxing and left the racing behind. So by the time I got to 8 or 9, he had sold everything to do with horses by then and had pursued boxing, like totally pursued boxing. I think he took a team to the Commonwealth Games in Malaysia from Swaziland, because that was his main passion. And by the time I was 9, I had absolutely no interest in horses by then, and they were gone anyway. And it was only for me meeting a mate of mine who didn't go to the same school as me, but they used to have a program where they used to have young kids that wanted to ride, used to be brought to a place called the Zulwini Stables, where they were taught how to ride and all of this. And I was talking to him one day, and he said, I'm going there on the Saturday, whatever have you. You know, we had a pretty free, you know, we had a pretty free lifestyle as far as kids are concerned in Africa. When the weekend comes and there's no school, I used to wake up in the morning, go and see my friends, and I wouldn't be back until dinner time, you know? So one Saturday I woke up and I just met up with my mate. We went down to this school and I just started riding lessons. They were free and it was all good. And I started getting all right at it. My brother tagged along. We started doing all this. So then I used to, on the way back from school, I used to get off the bus and go down there during the week and then leg it back home before, you know, anyone knew where I was going in this. And this one weekend I woke up and I said to my dad, here, listen, is there any way you could just take us down to the stables? And he was like, what? I says, yeah, I want to go down to the stables. I've been riding there and all this. You know, now I've picked it all up now. I can do the old canter, all of this carry on. So I wanted to, you know, make me old Pops proud and that. So come and see what I've been doing, you know? And he brings me down there anyway. Then the first thing that got me was he knew where he was taking me. And I was thinking, I'm trying to surprise him. He knows where he's taking me. When we get down to this yard anyway, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going in there. I'm going to ride some horses. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. He gets out the car. Next thing, he just chats to everyone in the yard like he knew him for years. And I was like, what? And it just, that's exactly what that's when it started. And I think what it was, writing become my decision, not his. And it just went from there. And I done show jumping in Swaziland all up until the time we left. And he seen how much me and my brother got into riding, that it kind of clicked with him, as an idea going forward. If we were liking riding so much, maybe we should go back to England and pursue it. And that was the plan. And he put us all. I was going to say put us all in the banana bun, brought us over to England. But no, we got over to England, and he got the job in O'Brien's. He went back riding out, and then he started taking me and my brother pony racing, and then it just developed from there.
So obviously you were in Ireland and then England eventually. When you moved over to England, obviously when you were working with Coolmore, kind of going across the world, what did UK racing offer you compared to when you were based in Ireland? Like, why did you make the jump from Ireland over to the UK to join kind of like Hannon, and I think you were with O'Meara for a bit as well? What was the driver behind that?
I think it was a lot of things. Personally, I would have never signed on only for pony racing, which I'd done in Ireland for a couple of summers, which had nothing to do with O'Brien's and Coolmore and that. But I think that's what gave me my foundation, I suppose, and my confidence to pursue actually riding. And obviously with my dad riding O'Brien's, it was easy enough to slip in there on the weekends. And the idea was to actually learn a bit more of a trade there and then actually come over to England and sign on. But as luck would have it, my dad got sick and Aidan offered me to sign on with him, which I'd done. And, I just started riding over there. For me at the time, I was in two minds whether to just stay in school or not. I didn't actually know if I wanted to pursue riding or not. And he pushed me into it. He pushed me thinking that I had enough talent to do it. So I did. And, I was under a great blanket with all of them, not only with the opportunities, but the level of security and everything they gave me for those early years. And then not only that, but the confidence to let me ride in all of those good races all over the world. I'll be forever grateful for what they've done for me in my apprenticeship. But, there did come a time when I felt as though, if I carried on doing what I was doing, which was great, don't get me wrong, I had that feeling that obviously because Joseph and all of them come up and they happen to be champion apprentices with all these things I wanted to do myself. And I always felt like if I did carry on, I didn't want to be sitting in a position where I'd look at things I didn't accomplish gone by and blame the people around me for them, So I did get to a point where I kind of thought, what, I'm actually at the point now where I want to go out and actually earn everything I can on my own back. Because if I ever was to fail, at least I would always turn around and say, what, you gave it a go. As opposed to not giving it a go, always have that security, but then always have it at the back of your mind thinking of what could have been, or,
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you obviously, you speak fondly of your time working with Aidan O'Brien, arguably the most famous and successful trainer there is. His public persona is quite cold and professional and sort of methodical. But then everyone who works with him seems to speak about him quite affectionately. Is the public persona really different from what you then get privately?
Look, I would stretch as far as saying he is the ultimate professional. And, someone like him, as meticulous as he is, you can probably see that publicly. And I wouldn't say he's very different privately either. But at the same time, he is a bit of crack. Like, he's good fun. He's not all gloom and doom and do you know what I mean? March the straight line. He is a bit of fun, an absolute gentleman, a very religious man. And he's, once you understand the man, he's a great guy, absolute great guy.
Now, did you kind of grow up there with with Joseph and Donica? Obviously, I guess they're a little younger than you, right? But did you kind of see them progress and know that they would eventually be as successful kind of as they are now?
I think that was always going to be the case, with their father's guidance. It was inevitable. Do you know what I mean? It was always going to happen. But I think that the biggest thing you've seen for the whole family was they always worked as a unit. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't one person's goal and another person's goal. It was a family goal all the time, which is very admirable. And you could always see, no matter you didn't know what successes they were going to have back then, but you always knew individually they would always all be successful because they always backed each other up.
And I guess from there, just to get back more into then when you went to the UK, and obviously I guess 2018 kind of is your breakout season. Obviously externally what would seem like the highlight being winning the 1,000 guineas at 66-1 with Bilston Brook. I guess sort of pointless to ask you what's that like as an experience, because it just must be incredible. But one thing I'd be interested in knowing, when you go into a classic on a horse that's priced at 66-1, do you really give yourself any chance? I mean, obviously in this instance you should have, but sort of what's the mentality then in that situation? Do you feel a bit like you're making up the numbers, or do you think the odds are often quite wrong in terms of how the horses are priced?
Do you know what? There's a lot of ways you can look at it, but the way I looked at it on that occasion was, I didn't understand, number one, how the horse was 66-1 after finishing fourth in the Nail Gwyn in the first place. They finished fourth in the trial. I think Hannon had another horse in the race, lovely horse owned by Jeanette McCreary, and a Nerinium, and it won the free handicap, and it was priced ahead of mine. I couldn't believe it, and I kept thinking, like, well, I just won a handicap. I said, how the hell is that going to be ahead of this thing? And I finished fourth in a Nail Gwyn. But taken into account, I always thought Bilston Brook had a very strong foundation as far as a 2-year-old career was concerned. Do you know, like, she danced a lot of dances as a 2-year-old, and she come up trumps a lot of times. And like, I knew the filly, and I think the massive thing was when she ran in the Nail Gwyn, she hadn't come to hand at that stage. She was still woolly in her coat. She hadn't really, but after the Nail Gwyn, she completely transformed. It's as if she woke up the next day with a summer coat and had put on 10 pounds. You know, like, it was quite amazing to see how she had transformed from that run to the other. And me riding at work, I kept thinking to myself, all right, look at what happened in Nail Gwyn. She was a bit keen, blah, blah, blah. I thought, look, all she has to do is settle. And if she settles, I get £5 more out of her. I don't see why I can't be in the first four again. So we swapped the races. Obviously, it's a lot easier going into a race like that as an underdog, especially 66-1 underdog, because it completely doesn't really matter what happens. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's just hoping for a good run and hope you come in happy and hope she comes in safe and sound. Do you know? That's ultimately what you go out thinking. And the back of my head, I'm thinking, no, I'm going to place in this. And then, do you know what? She jumped out the gate. She settled straight away. And do you know what? I actually didn't even move on her until we got down near the bushes. And I kept thinking to myself, every time I ride that bloody track in Newmarket and I'm traveling this well, I hit that dip and I go from 0 to 0 and end up finishing nowhere or end up just getting beat. And I kept thinking, nah, I ain't moving. I'm staying here. But on my right, I had Sylvester gallop, and he kind of had me in a pocket, which I was happy with initially because I needed her to settle anyway. But I kept getting closer and closer to the dip and kind of going, Sylvester, I need you out of my way here now in a minute. But he's looking at me thinking, you're 66-1, what are you on about? And I'm like, Sil, you've got to get out the way here. And he's like, yeah. Funny enough, as I was thinking it, his horse just fell away. I pulled my thing out and it just absolutely took off. Ran in through the dip as if it wasn't there and ran up the hill the other side. Don't get me wrong. I did think the way it got there, I thought surely there was something behind me going to pick me up. And no, it wasn't to be. And she picked up her guineas. And do you know what? The first thing I thought going past the line was, I don't know, not joy, nothing like that, but absolute relief. It was just
And
nothing but relief. I felt like I had been trying for so long just to get. I went from, you know, your dreams as a kid start off, I want to win a derby. I want to win a Guineas. I want to win a classic. Then over time, the game changes. It becomes more of a job. Now I need to pay my mortgage. Now I need, do you know what I mean? Now I need to ride everywhere and everywhere I can. And then the group ones keep escaping you. The good horses are very hard fight. And then you get to points where you're thinking like, all right, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to get a derby. I'm not going to get a Guineas. Oh, come on, any group one will do. I'll even take a German bloody Guineas at this stage. You know, again, that's the way it gets there. And then that's exactly where I was before that Guineas winner. I went past the line and I just went, oh, thank God for that.
has that then changed your approach to riding subsequently? Like, do you feel like a weight's lifted off your shoulders? Does that change the rides that you take, or?
Oh, but it was huge for me that year. Once that had happened, there was none of this trying. There's a lot to be said for trying too hard to win. If you try too hard to win all the time, you normally don't bloody win. You know, you kind of have to be in the middle somewhere. But that's easier said than done. But once I had won that and that relief that, you know, that monkey had stopped galloping and pulling the ears off me everywhere I went, then I was at a point where I was just riding better for it. You know, my confidence had like absolutely got to a serious height, and I started loving the game. Like I loved everything. I loved riding class sixes, everything, every donkey, just chuck them all out. I ride them all. And, you know, as a result, the winners started coming. Success breeds success. Your name was everywhere. The lad that won the 60-61 Guineas and all this, you were getting all the rides, you know what I mean? It just kept flowing. And then it was going so well for like a month. And then I fell off and broke my collarbone, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, I guess it's the unfortunate highs and lows of racing. It's a cruel sport in that respect. You touched on that, the pressure being less when you're going into it as a 60-61. Are you always aware of exactly what the price is of a horse when you're riding it?
You know what? The thing is, the higher the price, the less the pressure. So, like, but that's not necessarily so. When you actually, it's less the pressure because everyone else believes your horse to be 60-61. That's why it's 60-61. It's getting no support. It doesn't mean that's what you think of it. But you know what you start to think is, sure, it doesn't really matter. Sure, no one's gonna give me shit over this because like no one expects us to win anyway. But then you flip the coin, and when you ride a favorite, people say, yeah, the pressure is different. You just approach it differently. But like for me, I've been riding for years. I don't really give a shit what price it is. It's whatever I think they're able to do. But the only difference is, what are you gonna think once it's beat? Like, how many people follow a favorite into battle? How many favorites get beat all the time? Like so many. How many people follow a favorite into the battle just because, I don't know, the person that rides it or the person that trains it or whatever have you? But what actually makes the horse favorite? Sometimes there's no actual real logic behind why a horse is favorite. It's just supported more than the other one. But there's loads of occasions where, look at it this way, that horse I rode today for William Knight, 20-1. Why was it 20-1? It got a lovely mark. It actually placed twice. And what drove it all the way to be 20-1? No one supported it at 20-1, but they supported the favorite because that's how, you know what I mean? That's just kind of the way it goes.
And then as jockeys, is there ever discussion about that? So do you ever go into a race and you're talking amongst yourselves and you have that sense of, you know, if you're speaking hypothetically with, say, Ryan Moore, who's on a, you know, short price favorite, perhaps because it's an O'Brien horse with Moore on board. And do you then have the sense pre-race that you all know I'm not really on the favorite. I'm on the favorite in the betting market, but we don't think this is going to be the favorite if the race plays out the way it should do.
Well, you think about it, but like as far as having a conversation about it, probably not so much. You know, you'd have a lot of times when, say, when say you have surely when you have 5 derby runners from 1 yard running in a race, someone's gonna think their one's better than that one, and like there's every chance that 2 of them or even 3 of them are going to be priced wrong. But isn't that's pretty much the beauty of racing, though, isn't it?
As long as you pick the right one, yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of going off what Eddie said with that, I'm always intrigued with the communication between the jockeys, like in the changing room and things like that. Is it, for instance, say you're riding a horse in like the 3rd or 4th race, and you just know it's just primed for this race. Are you keeping that quiet, not saying a word, or is everyone kind of open with each other, kind of saying like, I really think I've got a good chance in this race or that race, or this horse has come on really well? Is everyone to themselves because they just want to win? Or is it more of, we're kind of all in this together. We're all riding, anywhere from 6 to 12 races a day, sometimes even, 5 days a week. What's that like?
I suppose you would say, well, it's all relative, isn't it? So, like, if I was talking to people who work in our yard, then I wouldn't just go as far as saying, here, I rode that last time. It's a bit tricky in the gates. Watch you going down the start. Try and settle it early. That kind of information. That's normally shared information from no matter who's riding it all over that's the camaraderie we would have. I would tell any jockey that was riding a horse I rode before about the horse. As far as it goes competitively, if I'm in the race, it depends who's riding the horse. Because ultimately, it's a race. It's a competition, right? I'm not going to tell him, hey, listen, if you follow me, mine's going to get tired here. And if you do this and you do that, you'll win. You know what I mean? Ultimately, do you know what? They wouldn't even ask. That's basically the best way of saying it. They wouldn't even ask. They'd ask you if it's a good ride. Is there anything I need to worry about? After that, they're pretty much on their own.
It makes sense. I want to go back to one thing you touched on, which is just the way people react. So I think what's kind of unique, obviously, about horse racing, even though there are plenty of people, including, the 3 of us, who love the sport, and it doesn't rely on us having a bet on a race in order to have an interest. But obviously, the gambling side of the sport is a major component. And the downside to that maybe is a little bit what you touched on already, that when a favorite loses, particularly when you look on social media, there's a huge backlash from people who've lost money being critical of the horse or the jockey, oftentimes accusing it of being a fix. Is that something that you ever notice, or you just sort of you're thick skin and know by this point just totally ignore it?
To be honest, I personally just totally ignore it. What could I say? I says once upon a time when I wasn't riding as much as I was or whatever have you. Remember a lot of the lads in the yard used to ride out, and they used to obviously go into town, have lunch, and they'd linger into the bookies. I used to go in there and play on the old roulette machines. And I remember going in there one day, and you know that virtual racing they have playing all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there, I'm on this roulette machine, do you know what I mean, chucking my pennies in the roulette machine and just messing about. Next thing, this guy, he's getting all antsy, he's watching this virtual racing, and his horse obviously gets beaten this virtual race and all this, and next thing he starts jumping all about, saying that the jockey gave it a shit ride. And I was like, well, fuck it, that's kind of what you're dealing with, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's
that's a bit of a sad reality. That
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Why I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all of those things. Like, seriously, like I'm not. Look, I can see how. Look, it can get intense, and depending on your situation, your position in life, it could be a bad experience. But like at the end of the day, for me personally, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you can tweet away, guys. It doesn't really bother me. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
it's just
You know what happens? What happens next is like you could tell me I gave everything today a bad ride, but ultimately I don't work for them. You know, as long as my owners, the people that have the confidence and put me up, are happy. As long as my trainer that I ride for is happy. As long as we've learned something of that situation and we're doing right by the horse going forward, then the next day will ultimately not change for me. I'm still going to have to go to my job, ride another bunch of horses for my trainer, for different owners, maybe. You know what I mean? It's a sport. It's never going to go. If I won all the time, like, it wouldn't be much fun, would it? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
You
it wouldn't be
might.
it would be very good for me. My bank account would be. But no, you get what I'm saying. Like it's sport.
Yeah, yeah.
The same as any sport.
No,
Sportsmanship.
I agree with you. It's always funny to me just because you see the accusations of something being fixed. You know, that's always and there are YouTube accounts dedicated to highlighting races and horses and jockeys where they think it's a clear fix. And I'm not saying I'm not going to that there aren't instances of perhaps jockeys not trying their best. And again, not to think that I think the horse racing is some big fix, but there are people who literally every time they lose, they think the only reason is it must be some massive conspiracy theory and it's a predetermined outcome, which just it blows my mind personally as someone who loves the sport. But I'm just interested to see from a jockey's perspective. I would have thought that's just frustrating to give your best, lose a race, and have someone turn around and say you probably didn't try.
Yeah, but there's so many ways of seeing it. The other thing is sometimes you do actually give one a shocker. And then you come in and you're obviously at yourself anyway. You're thinking like, I mean, if I'd done this, if I'd done that, if I'd done that. But then ultimately, the thing about it is, foresight, having the foresight to go in and do that, that's what you wanted to do and whatnot. And it doesn't work out. You had foresight going into the race. It doesn't work out. Things go pear-shaped. But then you pull up and now you've got hindsight. And now you're thinking in the back of, oh, if I done this, if I done that. And then there's that wonderful saying, hindsight is the foresight of a fool. Just like at the end of the day, like you can only learn from that experience. You can't go back and do anything about it. It's done. And what's to say, put in that situation again without the benefit of hindsight, would you actually do it differently? Like the thing about horse racing is like I think what people can't seem to get their heads around is the fact that it's a game of two minds. It's not just me thinking these things. Like the horse is also thinking things. I have to read what he's doing and then read what I'm doing. And like there's a hell of a lot. There's a lot more going on than what you see visually.
And also, I guess it's unique too, right? In that most people who are then watching the sport haven't ridden a horse. So whereas
this is it.
Most people who watch football have probably played football at some level, or rugby at some level. But now you're in this situation where, the overwhelming percentage of spectators have probably never even been on a horse.
Precisely. And it's like this, like if you're on a horse, you get to understand simple facts of horsemanship or even riding. Sometimes you say stop. Sometimes it says, no, I'm going to go quicker. Complete reversal. When you watch it on the telly, you're going, oh, he's too weak. He can't hold that. I don't know. Thing weighs like what was it weigh? Majority 500 kilo. I'm pretty sure when it decides to do something else, you're not going to decide it. You're not going. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to make its mind up for it.
Classic saying of a horse doesn't know its form, right?
Yeah, well, exactly.
So I had a kind of, you brought up that point about this person watching like virtual racing and things like that. And when I worked, I used to work in kind of bookmakers as well. And one of the things that was sometimes levied at flat racing, especially, is that there's too much of it. There's kind of, you saw with some race courses like Chelmsford that went through financial issues, Fosslas in Wales went through financial issues because there was too much racing. It was somehow like diluting the quality of flat racing. The kind of question to you is like, do the jockeys feel that? Because, you know, the amount of times you'll see, like, say you, for example, you're at Newbury for 6, then you're at the evening race on a Monday at Windsor for 7, especially with kind of Hannon. So do you find that jockeys are kind of overstretched with the, you know, starting at what, midday, ending at maybe like 9:30 in the evening? What do you think about that?
Look, there's an overall politics behind it all, and I wouldn't say I'm great at the whole politics side of it, but what I would say is, I think, yes, it does stretch us. I think before, obviously, COVID come into the picture, the rules would have allowed you to ride at 9 meetings a week, which then would have allowed you to ride, you know, a couple of double meetings through the week, a few double meetings through the week, which kind of allows you to do everything. Like, if you're self-employed, well, that's brilliant, right? But with horse racing, you take into account the fact that there's a lot of it you don't ultimately have choice on. If I can give you an example, I would say, say you were an owner, you had 20 horses in a yard, we found that Kempton and say Wolverhampton on an evening is on. Now you're going to run one of your horses in Kempton to start with, and then you're going to run 2 of your horses then in Wolverhampton on the evening. What would that mean for me is I'd have to go, and you want me to ride them, obviously. And what that would mean for me is I'd have to try and fill the card to a point that I would still, the rule was you still had to have enough time to get to the next said meeting, right? But they're 2 hours away from each other, these are. So what you'd have to do is from my house, I would have drive an hour to Kempton, rode there. Then if I got a couple more rides, so be it. But then I would have to get in my car and then make sure I got to the meeting in Wolverhampton to ride the other horses. But now that rule is coming. Because of COVID, we can't be going from meeting to meeting. So as a result, now there's only one meeting. A jockey can only do one meeting a day. But what that has opened up now is there's less that travel. A lot of the jockeys aren't spread as thin. So now you just go into Kempton for 4 rides or 5 rides or whatever have you, and then someone else will go to the other meeting to do the other ones. Do you know what I mean? Which opens up opportunity. You're not spread as thin. You know, there's, I think, personally, a hell of a lot more benefits for it. And that's great. But the other problem is there is still more and more racing all the time. There's more and more Sunday racing now. I think now they want to have evening Sunday racing. The thing about it is you're having more and more races without any quality involved in all of it. And with quality should be prize money. So the spreading the whole thing thinner and thinner and thinner. So now it's becoming more difficult for jockeys because now you're going in there trying to earn, and you're earning more out of your riding fee than you ever are winning anything. And I think it's just, I think personally, less racing is great because more racing only helps it for the people in the bookies that are punting on it all. So as far as I know it, I think they're making all the money, but we're doing all the work. But at the same time, we don't benefit for it because what we're running for is absolute peanuts. You know, as opposed to any other country in the world. If you look at America, if I was a jockey in America, I'd only ride on, say, what? I wouldn't ride every day anyway, that's for sure. I'd ride big racing on the weekend. That'd be right. Maybe I'd have to travel to one big race during the week, but that would be somewhere else. If I was based on Gulfstream or something like that. But then if there was 12 race card on the day, you're looking at a claimer minimum pot 80 grand. Whereas over here, you can race every single day, nearly 5 meetings on a day. Maybe that's on average. Maybe guaranteed 3 meetings on a day. And you're running for an average of 2.5 grand a race, minus the big pots. And you're only going to see them on the weekend somewhere.
I mean, now that you've kind of brought that up, I mean, have you ever thought about making a move to somewhere else to race, like moving to the States and, doing a year here, I guess here, because I'm here, but, going to the States and doing a full year of racing there and kind of maybe hopefully profiting from for the bigger prize money and same amount of races, things like that?
100%. While I was in O'Brien's before I actually moved to England, I went to mate of mine. We blagged it and went like, we'll get a job in America and go there for a couple of months. We didn't actually pick up the job or whatever have you, but I knew a couple of people out there. So we just got on a plane, flew out to America, went to Palmettos in Gulfstream. No, Palmettos in Palmettos anyway. And we went there and I ended up getting a job for Albatrani. Then I rode track work for him for a couple of years. And I look back at it now and I regret never trying to get a visa and try and ride out there. And, it's one of those things though. England's quite difficult because if you do leave it, it's very hard to come back into it. So you kind of you're waiting to go bad before you can ultimately make the big jump to go somewhere else,
Yeah, there's not a lot of examples of jockeys going abroad and ever coming back, really.
Yeah.
I guess we don't want to keep you forever. So there's a couple of questions. I know they'll have a few questions left, but if there's one horse around at the moment that you could ride, which would it be?
Oh, Jesus.
Or let's say 2 or 3. I'll make it a little bit easier for you.
2 or 3, yeah. All of the ones I won in Ascot. No, I don't know. Personally, I don't think I can't really think of one horse that is actually. Obviously, you'd want to ride something that's solid that you would imagine can't get beat for the rest of the year. And as things have worked out through the classics thus far in England, I can't actually see one that I don't think will get beat later on. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. I probably agree with you, but
later on. Could you mention a horse that you ultimately think? I know, like, could you mention when you see Frankel run, Frankel's not going to get beat. So like if it was the year of Frankel, everyone would go Frankel. So like as a jockey, you want the horse that can't get beat, and at the moment, the majority of Group 1s and that are still quite open. But I'm just gonna stick with my little filly there because like you got to stick to what you know at the moment. I reckon that Snow Lantern, she's she's gonna get it together soon enough. Well, sooner rather than bloody later, yeah. And she's only one position away from winning a Group 1 at the moment. So, I wouldn't trade her for anything. Other people's horses, I would have thought. I think that Saint Barks O'Brien's horse that runs in the Eclipse at the weekend.
Oh,
yeah,
Mark's Basilica, yeah.
Yeah, you can't go against him really for what he's done. Whereas you could find holes in the other horse's armor, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
I think he's just a solid horse. He's a solid horse that has proven a lot so far. I wouldn't mind a spin on him. He looks very straightforward. 2-year-olds are still up in the air, so I'm not too sure about them.
I'll get you off the hook.
I do like that Johnson Stayer, the horse that Joe Fanning won on. I've always loved the way Johnson trains his horses, and I'm just like how straightforward they are. Like I know a lot of them are front runners or whatever have you, but they're not. He doesn't seek out. He doesn't train them to be front runners. They're not trained in the manner of front running. They're just trained in getting into a rhythm and building on it and being so genuine and so tough that I think it'd be every jockey's dreams just to ride them kind of horses.
That's interesting because when we started, right, and when we spoke about getting instructions from trainers, I would have put Johnston in the category of he must be in telling the jockeys. Now you're saying he doesn't necessarily, that that's just the rhythm the horse finds. But it is interesting because from an outsider's perspective, I would have assumed anyone picking up a ride for him, he's telling them, make the pace, be out front, trying to stretch the race. So it's interesting. That was the name that almost instantly came to mind when you said you kind of difficult with trainers who had strong opinions on how the horses should be raced.
I think as jockeys for years, even for jockeys that haven't ridden, from which I definitely fall into that category. We're all in awe on how, it's hard to do things it's hard to do things simply. Like, just to be very simple all the time is not an easy thing to do, especially with horses. And like, I always find, like, no matter his horses, no matter how big, how small, how anything, they always jump out, find a rhythm wherever they are. Franny doesn't necessarily make the running whenever he doesn't try and kill him to get to the front. He jumps out to go that way. If someone else wants to go quicker than him, that's fine. But they always find a rhythm. But what gets me the most is how genuine they run to the line. Do you ever find, like, every last one of them put their head down and run to the line? Big, small, different breeds, it doesn't matter. Different trips, 5 furlong horses, doesn't matter. You never see one put its head up and back off the line. They always put their head down and run all the way to the line, no matter what. And I think, like, as, give credit when credit's due, like, I think that is a huge thing as a trainer to be able to do. How do you get so many different types, breeds, trips, so many different types of horses, and get them to do the exact same thing? It's as if they all have the exact same characteristic towards the line.
So, I mean, you mentioned Snow Lantern, who, you were on for second place at Royal Ascot in the Coronation Stakes. That was another one that was 14-1, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion. Is that another horse that you thought should not have been 14-1, that you were pretty confident on was going to definitely outrace its odds?
No, she definitely shouldn't have been 14-1. The only reason she was 14-1, she would have been near enough a favorite in the race, only for she ran so bad in New York the time before in that listed race. And that was fault of her own, really. I thought inexperienced that day. She was a Frankel. I think everyone knows Frankel's attributes. He was a very forward-going, very keen horse. I think Cecil used to always mention how his number one priority with the horse was to keep a lid on him. And she definitely has that attribute within herself. Her mother was completely the other way around. But one thing she had was absolute attitude. You couldn't tell her to do anything. If you told her to do something, the answer you get back was definitely no. You're always better off asking rather than telling. And she has both those attributes within herself. So, and I think in Europe, the day she jumped out, settled out the gates, and they went slow, and I told her to slow down, and she basically told me where to go. And as a result, she ran very free and didn't quite finish the race. But she's a young filly. She was learning. And I'm pretty sure she come out of that race with a different point of view. She trained a lot better after that. And we knew going into Ascot that she'd definitely make a better account of herself. It's one of those things with horses, you can never be 100% sure. It's not as if we sat down for a cup of tea and had a conversation about it, but like, you're kind of going on the back of what she's doing at home anyway. And she was training well, but I think at the back of your head, you always have that last day in the back of your head. So you're thinking, like, if she does that again, well, then we're screwed. And in this occasion, Richard done such a great job with her. She jumped the gates and she settled. And it was a pity, really, because the ground, of all the good days leading up to that day, that was a day when the inspection was held, the stalls were moved 30 yards down the track. They were moved to the other side of the track, giving her ultimately one of the best draws and one of the worst draws. And then going down and she only got beat half a length, but like gaining ground all the way to the line. And I can't see how you turn around in the back of that and not be optimistic. That she has only minor things to put together to beat the horse. Personally, I think she only has minor things to put together to beat the horse that beat her last time.
Yeah, I think everything he says makes sense. Sam, as I said, we don't want to hold you for too long, Sean. Sam, you got a final question to throw out there?
Yeah, I got one. Do you have, in the same way that, Eddie said about kind of a best horse or a horse you could ride, do you have like a course that you consider to be like your favorite course? And I guess in a similar vein, do you have a course that you think you have a lot of demons at and suddenly holds, a lot of near misses, close seconds, pipped on the lines, or anything like that? It could be anywhere in the world, because I know you've ridden in like the Breeders' Cup right through to UK, Ireland, France. So anywhere in the world, have you got like a favorite and a worst course to ride?
So favorite course, funny enough, to ride is Chester, and it's nothing to do with the course in general. It's just to do with the atmosphere that surrounds the course. Absolutely a great place to ride. I used to do pony racing before obviously I signed on. I done pony racing, and like it's structured pretty much the same, tight circuit, plenty fast, have to be on the pace, just basically have to be on the ball all the time. I do appreciate that, and I just love riding that like that. And that course allows you to get away with that kind of way of riding. But then if you put in then the atmosphere and all that, Chester has always kind of been top of the list for me as far as enjoying riding goes. I haven't really got a track I can't ride, but I do tend to be against, and it's nothing to do with the track. It got to do with the opportunities that you get each one in any given day. On a good horse, I would always prefer a good track where there's nowhere to hide. So on a good horse, I'd always love Ascot, Newbury, like Haydock, Doncaster, things like that, right? On a bad horse, and if you tend to be in a situation where you're riding a lot of outsiders, whatever have you, then you need places where you can hide a little bit. And then that applies to the likes of Linkfield. Mostly tracks with bends on them, where you can judge a little bit more and hope for a little bit more. But like, favorite tracks to ride on good horses, all the good tracks in the country, absolutely brilliant, because there's nowhere to hide. There's no hard luck stories. Best horse always wins. Newbury, Ascot, especially Ascot. Ascot is where all dreams go to. Everyone's thinking they got the best horse in the world, but only one person walks away with a winner, right? I think I've rode a winner on every track in the country so far. Just horses for courses, right?
It's not bad. That's not bad. I'm sure there's lots of punters out there who haven't had winners at every racetrack out there. So.
Weatherby. I don't think I rode a winner at Weatherby. But I've only ever been there
Weatherby now.
I don't think I'll be going back as well. That's miles away.
Sean, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time, and it's been an extremely enjoyable conversation. And we'd love to have you back on in the future, but it was great to hear about your career and your thoughts on racing. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No. Yeah. Hopefully I wasn't too honest with it now, and I'll have people getting back at me now.
Well, yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. And get home safely.
No, absolutely appreciate it, guys.
And don't have too many kebabs on the way home.
Yeah. No, I was actually looking at it there thinking, shall I not? I've gone against it.
Smart. You'll thank yourself in the morning.
True.
All right. Thank you.
Boys, thank you very much. Cheers.